For the greatest sense of cohesion, I will attempt to retell the events in chronological order, giving further analysis as an aside when necessary. In what is the first of many flashbacks, Joel relays to Tommy the grim details of the rescue of Ellie from the clutches of the Fireflies at the finale of Last of Us 1, punctuating his tale with the dark truth he hid from Ellie about their role in the end of a search for a cure. Joel expresses remorse for his actions, but not regret for the outcome. He is unsure whether or not Ellie suspects his version of events to be a lie, but is nonetheless confident in securing her benefit of the doubt for the time being. Tommy promises to safeguard this secret and to never tell a soul. 3 years earlier, on Ellie's birthday, Joel takes time out of his day for a little excursion to a still-standing natural history museum, to Ellie's surprise and delight. Here, Ellie absorbs the knowledge of the past, taking notes about dinosaurs and space exploration, for once forgetting about the dismal circumstances of the present and instead relishes the progress life has made, feeling like a normal kid for once. While exploring an old exhibit, Ellie stumbles upon a mural of the Fireflies with a postscript that reads, "Liars," sparking her curiosity about them once again. 2 years earlier, Ellie wanders with Tommy on a mountainside overlooking a lodge just outside of the settlement. Ellie has not been permitted to go on patrol just yet, but Tommy grants her some time with his rifle, tasking her with killing stray infected, which doubles as target practice. Later, they rendezvous with Joel inside the lodge, where it becomes clear that Ellie and Joel have had some recent failure to communicate. Despite this, Tommy instigates a bonding trip between the two to procure some replacement guitar strings to continue Ellie's lessons. There, they fight off small waves of infected, and Joel intervenes to save Ellie from an assault by a bloater. They then call off the search for strings, but not before discovering the remains of a couple that went AWOL from the settlement a year prior. Ellie philosophizes about the benefits of mass immunity and cross-examines Joel about his claim of other individuals that are resistant to the fungi, despite there never having been a clear sign to point to the existence of such persons. Joel remains calm under the heavy skepticism from Ellie and reassures her for the time being. 1 year earlier, Ellie absconds herself from Jackson to further investigate the now abandoned Firefly Hospital. It is here that Ellie unearths a tape recorder lamenting the failed attempt at a cure and also incriminating Joel and erasing all hope of an end to the apocalypse. When Joel arrives to retrieve Ellie, he finds that he is already too late and that Ellie has learned about the harsh reality. Joel has no choice but to confess to Ellie's horror and contempt. The night before all hell breaks loose, a lonesome Ellie stands idle at a gathering of some of the town's most prominent people. With drinks flowing, everyone is unwinding and uninhibited. A popular girl, Dina, requests to dance with her. Ellie accepts. Full of moxie, Dina lets Ellie in on a little secret about being the most attractive girl in the room and hence the #1 contender for her affection. Ellie dismisses this notion, but not before Dina can convince her of this fact by planning a kiss. An old man who specializes in making bigot sandwiches approaches the young couple in love to inform them that they are causing a disturbance. Then he assails them with a strongly worded homophobic slur. Joel comes to defend Ellie's honor, whisking the troublesome man away. But the prideful Ellie angrily scolds Joel and creates a scene, spurning Joel away. Later that night, Ellie visits Joel to apologize at being so harsh, but also demands fewer restrictions on her patrols. They briefly discuss Joel's previous selfish actions, but Joel reaffirms his position that in his heart he knows what he did was justified. Ellie expresses her disdain toward Joel and her own personal, continued struggle with survivor's guilt and her feelings of worthlessness. But she also acknowledges the desire to someday find the strength to forgive Joel. Thus, they begin a path toward reconciliation. The main story of The Last of Us Part 2 begins 4 years after the events of the first game. Joel, Ellie, and Tommy make the large settlement in Jackson, Wyoming their new home. It is a populated outpost of about 1,000 people, and they live comfortably and amicably within the fortress surrounding the city. Tommy and his wife run the daily operations, which consist of having armed patrols around the perimeter in search of clearing out infected hordes. Ellie and Joel have drifted some considerable distance apart in this time, and the overnight incident at the party has drawn attention to this publicly, causing some concern. When Ellie awakens, she finds Jesse, a male friend and former flame of Dina. Dina and Ellie start off on a routine patrol, but then take a detour when they uncover some preserved hallucinogens in the basement. They get high and profess their love to one another. Meanwhile, a storm approaches, along with the presence of two unfamiliar foes. Two outsiders known as Abby and Owen encroach upon the settlement, looking for a notorious man that resides there. They plot to find and kill this man, but are separated by a great swarm of infected. Abby has her life flash before her eyes when she is deus ex machina'd by Joel. It is at this critical juncture that we sadly divert our narration to cover the origin story of Abby. Abby is the biological daughter of a now deceased surgeon who operated within the Firefly commune. He was killed by Joel during the insurrection to save Ellie, as he was to be the one to operate on her brain for the cure. She grew up fueled by hatred and vexed by the need to avenge her father and her fellow Fireflies. But along with Owen, the young man she began a relationship with, became disillusioned and leave their former organization, join the WLF in Seattle. There they serve as grunts, but quickly rise through the ranks to become trusted enforcers for the leader known as Isaac. Abby is frequently distracted by thoughts of payback, and her relationship with Owen eventually deteriorates. Eventually, by word of mouth, they are able to narrow down the search for the culprit to the faraway Jackson. In the present day, Joel, Tommy, and Abby barricade themselves from the onslaught of infected when Abby seemingly innocently suggests a place where they can take refuge. It is here that Joel and Tommy walk into an ambush. Tommy is knocked unconscious and Joel suffers a shotgun to the leg, but not before giving his death rites and tortured and beaten by Abby in a 9-iron. Meanwhile, Ellie and Dina are caught in the act by Jesse, who informs them of the disappearance of Tommy and Joel. Extremely worried, Ellie takes off after them. Ellie ends up walking in on Joel's execution as he lay helpless and barely salient. A hysterical Ellie pleads for Joel's life, but to no avail. Ellie is then spared, but not before vowing to take vengeance of her own making. It is worth noting that this death is incredibly sad, but also very weird, as it seems to come out of almost nowhere, even given the friendly reminder of Joel's previous massacre. I find it especially unsettling, not just in the gruesome display that Joel is done away in, but that he has to die knowing that Ellie is there and potentially will suffer the same fate as him. When Ellie wakes up to find Dina, she is left traumatized and in a state of catatonic shock. In the days and weeks to come, many well wishes and condolences are sent to Ellie, Tommy, and Maria's way. Ellie and Dina embark on a journey to find the people responsible, despite strong condemnation by Maria and pleading by Tommy. Tommy ends up joining them anyway, albeit on his own separate path. In Seattle, Ellie and Dina quickly encounter the militia group known as the Washington Liberation Front, or short for WOLFs, the WLF, that put forth a strong and violent rebellion against the government-issued FEDRA, or Federal Disaster Response Agency, and they now enjoy supremacy over the region and the former quarantine zones. Eventually, Ellie and Dina, having fought through coalitions of WLF, obtain photographs labeled with the name of the perpetrators of Joel's murder and hence get their primary targets. Evading the wolf troops, they navigate the collapsed and intoxicated subway tunnels before being blindsided by a horde. Narrowly escaping, they take refuge in a deserted theater, and two revelations are made, one major and one minor. The first, a minor one, is that Dina is pregnant pregnant, having been carrying Jesse's seed for a while now. She will thus be out of commission for the foreseeable future. Ellie reveals to Dina about her immunity in what is arguably the most cinematic development in this story so far. Dina is incredulous. Ellie, concerned about Tommy getting ahead of her in the race to find Abby, and for his own safety, sets out on her own to find him. Jesse joins in and they have a harrowing encounter with more wolf and hordes respectively. Ellie then moves through Seraphite territory en route to a WLF hospital and compound where Nora, one of the parties responsible in Joel's death, can be found. The Seraphites are a violently deranged cult with an aversion to modern technology and weaponry. They serve as a rival to the wolves and kill almost indiscriminately, even going so far as to execute their own people for the slightest disobedience. Nora is the head physician at the wolf compound, and she has the possible location of Abby. Once Ellie infiltrates the hospital to find Nora, she engages Nora head-on, holding her at gunpoint before being taunted by Nora, who then gives Ellie the slip and puts the entire base on alert. Ellie manages to track Nora down and force her underground to a perilous area full of fungal spores. Nora, succumbing to the effects of the toxins inhaled, is shocked to see Ellie breathing normally. She then deduces that Ellie is the girl, the apocryphal one that was said to be immune. Ellie asks her about the fireflies and starts to see the motive behind Joel's murder. Ellie beats the information out of Nora about Abby, her location, and the reason for her doing what she did. This is one of the most effective scenes in the game, conveying the twisted nature of Ellie's character development as well as delivering a suspenseful twist in the plot. I wish more scenes were like this. Afterward, Ellie and Jesse make their way to the aquarium, the place where Abby and Owen had long held refuge over. Jesse dislikes the narrow-minded focus that Ellie has on Abby and decides to leave her in order to find Tommy instead. As Ellie commandeers a boat for transport to the aquarium, it is at this point that these events from Abby's timeline occur simultaneously. Abby, while going on a rescue mission of her own to bring back a rogue Owen safely before he can be interrogated by Isaac, is captured by the Seraphites, known colloquially as the Scars. Here, she is hung and nearly asphyxiated before she is deus ex machina'd by two child grunts named Lev and Yara. Lev is actually a young girl originally named Lily that now identifies as a boy named Lev. He was to be killed because he violated the principles of the tribe. Yara is wounded in the battle and has to have her arm amputated, so Abby risks life and limb of her own to steal supplies from her own base in order to facilitate the surgery to save Yara and to repay the debt of having her life saved. Owen is sympathetic because he, too, is tired of the constant fighting and wants to disappear to Santa Barbara, where a remaining faction of fireflies are rumored to be located at. Abby is put under arrest before she can deliver the medical supplies, but with help from Nora, she is able to make the deadline. Lev runs away to the island of the Seraphites, but at the same time, Isaac and the wolves are planning a massive invasion to take the island by force and to eliminate every last Scar. Yara and Abby manage to save Lev, but at the cost of Yara's life and that of Isaac, thus pitting Abby against her former wolf companions. Abby and Lev now form a permanent alliance and return to the aquarium to find, I'm glad I'm done with this subplot. Ellie has in this time made her way onto the aquarium grounds and instead of running into Abby, finds Owen and Mel. A struggle ensues and Ellie takes her pound of flesh from both of them, but without obtaining the location of Abby, which is what she came there to get. To Ellie's horror, she has killed the pregnant Mel and leaves with Jesse and Tommy in a state of shock and remorse. Abby later returns to find her slain friends and, picking up Ellie's dropped map, plots her own retaliation for the retaliation. Tommy and Jesse console Ellie and basically pack it up on the quest to kill Abby, opining that she might have to live as they've done enough damage already and desperately need to retreat to get Dina the necessary medical attention. At this same moment, Abby barnstorms the theater and holds Tommy at gunpoint. Jesse rushes in and gets his face blown off instantly, which is about the most impact he's had on the story so far. Tommy gets kneecapped and shot in the back of the head, and Abby and Ellie play catch cat and mouse in the stage area. Ellie gets a few good shots in, but mostly gets manhandled by Abby before being deus ex machinaed by a now fully revitalized Dina. Dina has at first the upper hand, but then gets arrowed by Lev and then is held at knife point by Abby. Ellie pleads for her life, making the case that she's pregnant, but Abby doesn't care at this point. Lev speaks up and Abby lets go of her anger, sparing Ellie for the second time. Sometime later, on a farm that Dina dreamed of one day having, she lives a quiet, secluded life with her newborn son JJ, initials for Joel Jesse or Jesse Joel, not sure which one, and her new wife Ellie. Until one day Ellie's in the barn and has a sudden episode of PTSD over Joel's death and suffers a panic attack. To match this, Tommy miraculously survives with a limp and a missing eye and pays a visit. Cutting to the chase, Tommy bears news of incredible news regarding Abby's whereabouts. But Ellie is resigned from her days of seeking revenge, so Tommy is upset as he has been obsessed with getting payback and reminds Ellie of her promise that she made to him after the events at the theater. Tommy is now half crippled, a bitter man that lost his wife, and does not have the means to take action himself. This lingers in Ellie's mind and weighs on her. She is unable to sleep and stays up late at night contemplating her next move. Abruptly, she packs her things and sets out on one last campaign to avenge Joel, rejecting the ultimatum from Dina. During this time frame, Abby and Lev are hopeful to find the Fireflies, having arrived in Santa Barbara. Following the clues, they get on the radio scanner. They manage to contact the base in Catalina and arrange to meet with them. On the way there, they are abducted by bounty hunters serving as part of the Rattler gang and are taken away to be imprisoned in a labor camp. Ellie arrives not too much later, hot on Abby's trail, but falls prey to a trap set by the Rattlers. A wounded Ellie manages to outwit the captors and in return locate Abby. Ellie raids the compound and frees the prisoners, finding Abby on the beach tied to a post, left for dead. Abby is malnourished, shriveled up, and incredibly fatigued. It would seem that Ellie sympathizes with her, but at the last second she feels compelled to prevent a happy ending for her. Ellie and Abby have a fist fight, and this time it is more evenly matched, but goes the way of advantage Ellie. Ellie has Abby in a vice grip and is mere seconds away from ending her life when she has a change of heart inspired by an image of Joel. It is in this moment that I infer she forgives Abby and Joel and lets go of her animosity. Let us not forget that at the moment before Abby killed Jesse, they were discussing letting Abby live before she rudely interrupted them, and Ellie reluctantly agreed to this. Abby and Ellie go their separate ways, both making it out safely, but Ellie loses 2 fingers in the exchange and returns to a broken home to find Dina and JJ long gone, and Ellie can no longer play the guitar. Joel took all the time to teach Ellie the guitar, and now she can no longer play it, perhaps symbolizing the need to let symbolic things go. Ellie leaves the guitar and sets out again on an unknown journey against a bright backdrop. And on the main menu, the dark, foggy ocean turns to a bright shore with the Catalina casino in sight. This could imply that they did make it to find the Fireflies and that maybe Ellie found peace on her own. The end. This is about as much sense as I could make or would want to make of this story. The story of The Last of Us is the story of Joel and Ellie, and that is a very personal story, so to inject Abby artificially into the story just robs the game of any personal touchstone, but this is